All of us have heard of corporate social responsibility, also known as CSR. 20 years ago, CSR was something rather simple. It was limited to corporate philanthropy, and in the case of certain businesses, it was just adherence to some environmental regulations. Over the last 20 years, CSR has undergone a sea change. What we see today is actually a very complex picture with an ever-widening stakeholder universe. To talk about creating greater business impact through enhanced CSR, we have a distinguished panel of women, and our first set of women speakers for today, Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, Preetha Reddy, and Geeta Gopalakrishnan. Kiran, we're all familiar with. Apart from running her own company, she's involved in corporate philanthropy as well. Preetha Reddy is Executive Vice Chairman of one of the largest healthcare conglomerates in India, Apollo Hospitals, which was actually India's first corporate hospital, and it revolutionized healthcare in India. Geeta Gopalakrishnan is the Honorary Director of Donor Relations at Tata Medical Center, TMC, which was set up to support underprivileged cancer patients. Can we have the AVs, please?
Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw. Padma Bhushan Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw is Chairman and Managing Director of Biocon Limited, the country's leading biotechnology enterprise. She is the current chairperson of IIM Bangalore as well, the first woman to hold this position. Biocon is a globally recognized biopharmaceutical enterprise that is committed to innovation and affordability in delivering world-class therapeutics to patients. Under her stewardship, Biocon has evolved into a fully integrated, innovation-led, emerging global biopharmaceutical enterprise committed to reduce therapy costs of chronic conditions like diabetes, cancer, and autoimmune diseases. She was named among Time magazine's 100 most influential people in the world and recognized as a global thought leader for biotechnology. Kiran is also involved in many philanthropic activities through the Biocon Foundation, which focuses on the areas of health, education, and infrastructure, especially in rural areas of Karnataka. Preetha Reddy. Preetha Reddy is the Executive Vice Chairperson of Apollo Hospitals, one of the largest healthcare conglomerates of India. Apollo Hospitals is widely recognized as the pioneer of private healthcare in India and was the country's first corporate hospital. A forerunner of integrated healthcare, Apollo has a robust presence across the healthcare spectrum since its inception in 1983. Preetha Reddy is a pioneering businesswoman who works closely with clinicians to enhance clinical outcomes and achieve the highest standards of patient satisfaction. She was instrumental in getting Apollo Hospital accredited by the Joint Commission International, JCI, the global gold standard for quality and patient safety. Preetha Reddy was awarded the Outstanding Personality Award by the Indian Medical Association in 1999. Preetha Reddy works with industry bodies and the Government of India to advance policy decisions on healthcare issues. She is a past president of the All India Management Association, AIMA, and is also a governing board member of the XLRI Jamshedpur. Geeta Gopalakrishnan. Geeta Gopalakrishnan is the Honorary Director of Donor Relationships at Tata Medical Center, TMC, set up to support underprivileged cancer patients. She is also known for her promotion of use of English in advertising. She has been instrumental in TMC raising a corpus of over $50 million. Her Dil Se Dijiye campaign aims to raise funds for the same. In her words, the joy of giving from the heart is the soul of the Dil Se Dijiye campaign, and every contribution, big or small, makes a difference.
It is my privilege to invite the three dynamic ladies, Kiran, Preetha, and Geeta, on stage. May I invite Shekhar Gupta on stage to moderate the session, please? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, I'm very happy to be in a minority of one, in a group of four. I wish these things happen to us more often. All of us hear complaints, and I entirely agree with them, complaints about what is called as manels, that all the panels are all male usually. So this is a good one to have. Two, I think the term moderate is a little bit loaded and places a lot of responsibility on you. So when somebody said you're moderating this and this and this, and I said I can moderate everybody else, but how can I be moderating a session with Mohandas Pai, right? I can have a conversation with him. So in fact, I told him, I said, my job is to moderate you. So I'm not exactly moderating, I'm enabling, that's my role, to be the enabler. The theme is corporate social responsibility. I have my views on it, but this is not the time for me to share my views with you. I'd ask each one of you to give your own sense and also a little bit of what you are doing, and we can go left to right. So I don't cut into your time. Just take a couple of minutes.
We are in the business of caring, and I think when you're working with healthcare, it's more about caring and the business follows. Profit or business in healthcare is actually not a bad word, because you have to have the surplus, you have to have the funds to reinvest, to grow, to give people whatever is state of the art in terms of technology, so that the best is available. So how you find the funds to do it is probably just a means to an end. Having said that, I think, when we say corporate social responsibility, the healthcare space, which I'm going to stick to during this conversation by and large, is something which has been seamless, because, it is when you're in the healthcare space, it is a responsibility, it's a social responsibility, and the corporate word actually is probably at the last of it, is towards the end of it. And having said that, I think what we've been happy is that we've been able to, as an organization, help many organizations grow. We used to have, India used to have islands of excellence, and people had to travel far and wide to get excellence in healthcare, and it had to be financially and geographically accessible. Today, I think people can drive maybe 200-300 miles and be able to access healthcare, but there is lots to be done, and that is the huge responsibility piece. It's a social responsibility, and I think it's never enough what we can do in the healthcare space, and everybody has to come together to be able to deliver. But more than anything else, I think in today's age, the country is being faced with huge disease burdens in the area of the non-communicable diseases, and no amount of infrastructure, you're not going to be able to build enough hospitals, train enough people, fund all this to be able to overcome the disease from an intervention point of view. So I think the focus has to be on prevention, and I think that is the biggest responsibility today, is actually to prevent people from getting into healthcare infrastructure, from getting sick, and they really need to focus on staying well.
Tell us a little bit about what you are doing specifically.
So specifically in the area of intervention, we have hospital beds, we do state-of-the-art, whether it's transplant or cancer or anything which, a good healthcare organization will do. But what excites me today is the prevention piece. Every day we screen about 5,000 people a day within the Apollo ecosystem to keep them out of the hospitals, to keep them well. We train them to stay well. And in the village where my dad came from, we have what is called a total health program, where from womb to grave, people are educated on better lifestyle. They are taught occupational health. They're taught how, where they can find jobs, skill development, where they can become allied healthcare workers. They're taught some kind of livelihood or the other, even for farmers, for better farming. We have 5 schools which are, tied up with the Isha Foundation. So the children are taught to think, like we heard earlier. The children are taught to live better, and the whole system of education is so different from the usual ones which we have heard. We're running medical schools for them so that, tomorrow somebody who's bright and intelligent can go to a private institution without worrying about can he really afford it. There are about 11 to 15 nursing colleges within our system. So I think it's more about education, it's more about giving people livelihood, and it's more about raising the quotient, raising the healthcare quotient. A little while ago we had Mr. Amitabh Kant saying that, health and education is most important. So we have a captive population, about 70,000 villagers, whose data is captured, who've been taught better lifestyles, who've been given skilling, who've been given alternate sources of income so that they can be self-dependent. And we're trying to see if we can raise the bar on the healthcare outcomes, we can raise the bar on nutrition, on maternal health, and on women's health. So I think this has really been the dream project of ours now.
Kiran, and also, how much difference can corporates make? Is it just a drop in the ocean?
So let me answer this by saying that, philanthropy has been a part of my ethos. And I think as an entrepreneur, I've always felt that, social inclusiveness, making a difference to society, doing something which can make impact, which can really improve lives of the less privileged has always been part of that, philosophy of our corporate social responsibility. And I think every company looks at what it can do best to do that. And in our case, obviously, since we are also a pharmaceutical company, a biopharmaceutical company, we have focused a lot on primary healthcare because I feel that's a crying need in our country. I've always felt that the first point of care, healthcare, is in a very bad shape in our country. And I have believed that using technology, you can actually improve these primary health centers. However, having said that, I don't think it's about doing the government's job. It's about catalyzing a government gap or a deficit. How do you help government to bridge a gap and then let the government scale up if that model really is good? So as a scientist, I always believe that, experimenting with new models is what I think we should, as a company, use in terms of providing that risk capital to experiment with these new models. So what we've done is we've really created, we call them e-large clinics, but these are basically primary healthcare clinics which are technology enabled to provide very high-end diagnostics using a lot of the new technologies, affordable technologies that have really dramatically brought down the cost of delivering diagnostics. And using that, we also then link these primary health centers through telemedicine to specialists, because that's another huge deficit that we have in primary healthcare is doctors. Now, one of the experiments we are also, dealing with is, can you use Ayush doctors to really use diagnostic information and then connect with a specialist doctor in a tertiary healthcare center to actually deliver the right, medication or diagnosis. So I think that's a very exciting project for us. We're doing it in 2 or 3 states. We've started very well in Rajasthan, in Karnataka, in Andhra, and we are also doing it in the Northeast. So we're looking at very remote areas because that's the challenge. You can do it in urban centers very easily, but we are actually doing it in very, very remote, poor rural areas to see, is it helping? And what we're also doing is integrating that data real time with the government's healthcare database. Now that's quite a tall order, as you know. But we are managing that. We have got very, important dashboards being created. about the disease burden, the disease profile. You can actually link this with various other healthcare parameters such as dispensation of drugs. You can do follow-up calls. This is all, you're actually creating electronic medical health records for individuals. And with Aadhaar, a lot of this actually goes to another level. So I think it's a very important opportunity for us, and we believe that as a company we would like to do this. Of course, other than that, we're also investing a lot in academic training for biotechnologists, because we feel that this is an area where we need to really enable and enhance education for employability. So that's another area that we're really investing in. Apart from that, we also do other simple things like reviving lakes around Bangalore, working with various rural communities in environmental enhancement through, investing in schools, toilets, all those kind of things. But by and large, our main focus is on primary healthcare through these technology-based these primary healthcare centers, and of course in advanced academic education. It's like a finishing school, really, so to speak.
So I think when we open it up, we'll talk more about the challenges of working with the government system. Challenges and also maybe some happy experiences. But before that, you are doing some very innovative things. So please tell us a little bit about those.
Folks, before I begin, can you hear me?
Yes. I mean, I can, but I'm sure they can hear.
Do you have the mic? Oh, it's not working. I'll take that mic then. Yeah, I'll take this. Folks, I have a confession to make. When I heard the other panelists on today's CSR panel, I really shuddered. And when the films came on, I shuddered even more. And after what they said, I'm kind of humbled, but I will just tell you whatever I have to say, they'll say. Life has its defining moments. And it may seem ordinary to some, I'm sure all of you have had those moments, but it's seminal to the individual. I grew up in a joint family which in Hyderabad, saw two traumatic health incidents. One was my aunt, after years and years of marriage, had a special child. She was mongoloid and literally like a doll. And the other was a young uncle diagnosed with cancer, who was given 2 years to live. And in the midst of all that gloom and tears of those years, my grandmother, like all grandmothers, wise as they come, said, "It's God's will, and what will be. But have you thought about all those hundreds outside?" She said in Tamil, "Nambalukku veedu vaashal irukku," which means we have a roof above our heads, a threshold. What happens to those who have the same problems, who, cannot cope, do not have financial support? That was the turning point. And at 19, I joined Sadhana School, a very wonderful school for special children, where I had two learnings from the wonderful Sister Gaitonde, who's the principal of the school. She said, "Sure, approach for fundraising, approach the rich, the wealthy, the influential, but don't forget that out there, there's the heart of society. There are thousands of people. No matter how small the amount, they all want to do good, they want to give." So that was a very important dual learning. And in advertising, I found that very useful, because then, you could approach both with dexterity and ease. 6 years ago, I joined Tata Medical Center full-time, of course, as a labor of love. And I heard that maximum cancers come from Eastern India. They used to come in thousands to Bombay and give up treatment and go back. So the Tata Group set up a 350 crore world-class hospital where 50% of the beds is for the greatly underprivileged. We all say, "Hum ek hai, hamara khoon ek hai, aate hain, jaate hain, sab ek hain." But the rich really go to wealthy hospitals where they can pay and the poor sleep on the roads. But in Tata Medical Center, 50% is for the most underprivileged. And here I want to mention Kiran, because we were talking about Sister Gaitonde's principal works here in my work too. Kiran gives 1 crore every year to the children with cancer. Without a thought, I just showed her a film we had made and she said, no question. I thought maybe, 10 lakhs, maybe if I'm lucky, but it's 1 crore that comes in for the pediatric ward. And out there, I just want to say, Hazaro hamare deshvasiyon who add, just if you go to a West Side or a Croma, not just Tata companies, but restaurants and any commercial establishments in Calcutta and in Mumbai, they add 10 rupees to the bill. And small changes made really big change for cancer. So.
Well, congratulations. Now the question that I was asking earlier. First of all, just the ethical issue. Is our corporates supposed to perform the job that governments are failing to perform? Because governments take so much tax and plus they take a cess for everything. There is a Krishi Kalyan. In fact, I'm preserving a credit card receipt in my pocket and I'll put it on social media for buying a sandwich from Starbucks for 203 rupees. It has about 7 different taxes, 34 paisa, 31 paisa, 18 paisa, like that. So when government has such a large bandobast and machinery, government has so much money, government can't outsource its responsibility to all of you. Government should be providing education to the poor. Government should be providing health care. Government should be providing many of the other things. So first is the ethical issue. And the second then is how easy or difficult it is to work with the government. So ethical issue, you want to talk about?
So I think what you've said is true. I think right to healthcare, right to education is something that this country needs to work towards. But I also believe that we have failed in delivering basic healthcare, basic education, or good quality healthcare, good quality education. And I think because of decades of neglect and the failure to deliver on these fronts, I think it's extremely important for us as corporates to actually address these, not as an exercise of government abdicating their responsibilities, but as enablers to the government of actually then implementing workable models which are effective in delivering what was missing all these years or these decades. So I personally believe that the ethical issue is, look, we are part of this society. We are citizens. We want a better society.
But that's voluntary.
Yeah, it is a voluntary thing. We want a better society. We are citizens of this country. We have, obviously financial resources available to us. We have to choose what we want to do with that. Okay, you might argue by saying, is that 2% mandatory CSR spend, is it fair or not?
Because that doesn't remain voluntary anymore.
Yeah, so
it's like a tax.
I just feel that a country like ours, where corporates do need to be socially sensitive. I think from that point of view, I don't basically, I'm not against it, because I feel that it almost draws your attention to doing something about your social responsibility. It should be voluntary, but I think even if it's mandated, at least that's an amount which companies ought to do something about. And it basically just focuses your attention to your responsibility.
But doesn't it create an impression that the problems that we have of bad delivery are because of the corporates and not the government?
No, I don't agree, sir, because in the government, we've been to Coal India. In fact, Mr. Piyush Goyal inaugurated Premashaya, which is a residential facility for underprivileged children, to go after their cancer treatment. In the last 6 years, I don't know how many government offices I have touched feet of people there. But they're sitting on a lot of money. And they're ready to do it. Down the line, they're ready to do it, but somewhere it gets caught. And with great difficulty, we managed to get the 45 crores from Coal India, for example. So I really think it's their job. I mean, everybody else has to just supplement what they're doing, what they should be doing.
And I guess, Shekhar, I think the government ought to outsource things that they are bad at.
like running of airlines to begin with.
So I just think that they're really bad at coming out with new workable models. And if we can catalyze that process, I think it will make a big difference.
So what happens when you work with the government system, say the bureaucrats, politicians, do they get defensive if you tell them that our systems or procedures are better, why don't you follow us? And don't you get a reaction like, try and work in the government?
Shekhar, I think I've been lucky and I cannot complain that every time we go to the government and we tell them, listen, you know, we want to do this and allow us to do it because we really need to make a difference. I have not seen that kind of attitude. But having said that, you know, in a country as large as ours, it's easy for us to sit and say, you know, let the government do X, Y, Z. And we know very clearly that they're not able to do it. In a city where I come from, which is Chennai, even the streets are dirty. The place is horrible. We've had a cyclone. So citizens, what have we done? We've said, at least let's go out now and plant trees. We've lost about, almost 100,000 trees in Tamil Nadu. Now, if we sit and say, yes, the government's going to come and replant the trees and etc., it's not going to happen. And I think as a responsible citizens, let's go ahead and do it. If the government comes in the way, you know, if they're an impediment, that's a problem. And I think it's maybe up to us. And of course, if you're lucky and the government works alongside, which they're doing in many states, then it's a good thing to do. I'm not saying Tamil Nadu is a great state either. So, you know, there are a lot of problems there. But having said that, I think the government, you know, has to do what they can, allow private sector to help them to do what has to be done. But there's a lot to be done, and there's one point I want to make in the health sector. You know, we did an analysis. The healthcare budget is 38,000 crores. But 70% of the 38,000 crores does not actually go in the delivery of healthcare. It's either in wastage or it's in salaries which are being paid. So it's actually frittered away, and that is the taxes, those many taxes which you're paying on that bill which you took.
You know, since you said...
So there is a problem.
You said Tamil Nadu is not so good. You know, Americans have these T-shirts for babies that say, if you think I look great, you haven't seen my mom or my dad, depending on whether the baby is a boy or a girl. So I think we should have those T-shirts. If you think Tamil Nadu is bad, you haven't seen UP yet.
Also in Tamil Nadu, you wear a shirt and a veshti, so I don't know where the T-shirt's going to go.
You could do it on a veshti, but the fact is that in Tamil Nadu, delivery of services at the citizen level, particularly in rural areas, is much better than in other parts of the country.
I also wanted to make one more comment, Shekhar. You asked about how is it to work with governments. I really believe it's all about the officer in charge. You have, I mean, I've come across the best of people who it is a pleasure to work with, and there are people who are really proving to be impediments.
Give us one example of each.
Okay.
If you want to name names, or if you don't want to name names, up to you.
No, I mean, I don't want to, you know, take names, but for instance, in Cut that you're ready with it. So that was very easy. But then we went to other states, and I can tell you, it was like, you know, sort of viewed with suspicion. What are you trying to do? You know, we have certain...
Aapko isme kya milega?
Yeah. So, you know, you have both types. So it all depends on the individual officer. And I think today we find that a lot of state governments, when you say, okay, we are doing it in this state, they want you to do it in their state as well. So there is this kind of competitive federalism that, you know, I think Amitabh Kant was talking about.
You work a lot with government and PSUs, as you mentioned, and in the toughest part of India, in a way, in the east. What's your experience? And have you found good officers or bad officers? Or has your experience been generally good, generally bad, or a combination of both, as Kiran said?
You know, the strange part of it is that my work has all been in Delhi, because that is where Indian Oil, who gave a lot of money, are based. The minister and all the bureaucrats are there. So in Kolkata, I have not gone with my begging bowl to anybody. But it's finding, I think one of the things that's worked for me is that to get to know the guys who are at the, I wouldn't say rung, lower rung or whatever, not use that word, but what I mean is the junior officers. And then find a way. It has to be done. That's the saddest part, that both Indian Oil and in Coal India, I've had to go to the minister to put forward my case and say that this is a national problem. If maximum cancers come from the east, it's a national problem. But it's taken many years of convincing. That's all. But it's been done.
So does action take place when it comes top down from the minister?
It has to go both ways, is my experience. So I make presentations to the people who look after CSR, like in the case of Indian Oil, and then I found a way at that time, of course, to go to the minister and figure a way out.
Shikhar, there was a comment earlier about the southern states actually being able to achieve much more. And I think that's been because the officers have been extremely good. In a state like Tamil Nadu, despite whatever, they're facing from the political side, the government mechanism, the officers have been phenomenal. The healthcare indices in Tamil Nadu is one of the best. We have one of the best health departments in the country. In fact, it's a model for the rest of the country. The cadaver laws are the best, and everyone else is copying that. So I think a lot depends on the people who are actually, running the government, which are the officers. And the southern states seem to really have a much better bunch of them for whatever reason. And similarly, I haven't had great experiences in the East while, we've been in Calcutta a long time, but to get things moving with the government has been extremely difficult. And so has it been in Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand, because there everything has to go to the, to the ministers or the politicians, and the officers don't really take too many decisions. So I think there is a dichotomy. In some states where they're empowered, things move. Otherwise, it is hard.
This is a big difference between the south and the north, particularly, say, extreme cases being Tamil Nadu and, say, a state like Chhattisgarh. In southern states in general, but Tamil Nadu especially, Chief Minister controls everything at the top, including money-making opportunities, used to control, right? But at functional levels, lets officers in the system be free. And it's also not as corrupt as elsewhere. Whereas in most northern states, now chief ministers control everything. Starting from change of land use for a factory to a township to even a temple or a little house. So I think that's a big difference. Kiran, you saying something?
No, I just wanted to say that, I think when you think about corporate social responsibility, I think organizations also need to get a philanthropic, a culture within the organization amongst its own employees. And I'm very proud that within our own organization, I know many people basically make time for these kind of contributions. So I think it's extremely important for people to have that sense of caring for their societies. So it has to go beyond just the employees feeling that, our company is doing something in corporate social responsibility, but we encourage our people to at least provide and make time for many of the things that we're doing. So we do have many volunteers, wanting to go and do things at these clinics, in education, in many, many things. And I think it's extremely important to do that as well.
I just want to give you an example. We started a foundation called Save a Child's Heart, and it was towards heart surgery for children, and especially the girl child, because we found in poor families, if they had money, they would give it to the boy, but to the girl child, they would think twice because, she's still not looked at as a breadwinner. So we've done 5,000 completely free heart surgeries on children over the past 3 years, and we find that the employees are contributing, which is really a nice thing. It's exactly what Kiran said, that the employees come back and say, it's my birthday, so let me give 100 rupees if he's let's say, a housekeeping boy. And the doctors come back and say, we all have weddings in our families, and we've said, no presents, everything goes to the Such Foundation. And that has been able to do for children for cancer, completely free cancer treatment, for cochlear implants, because, hearing is a huge problem, and for heart surgery. So I think this has to come from within.
So is this the same organization for which Jet Airways collects money on flights, Save the Children? or it's a
No,
different one?
this is ours. We don't go to anybody else. For some
see.
reason, we
That's your own,
think
yes.
charity begins at home, and we need to first be an example.
You have any specific examples or cases that you will talk about? Would you like to talk about any specific examples or cases like she talked about raising money for these treatments?
Like I said, most of our the funds that we've raised have either come from the government, they come from corporates, or the maximum numbers have come from the general public. And in fact, I just want to tell you that, you know, we all think, it is believed that, and sister was right, that everybody's got a heart. But I think a heartwarming incident is, we have this Dil Se Dijiye 10 rupaye, and can you imagine a peon in our office came and told me, he said, हमने देखा है 10 रुपया collect कर रहे हैं, क्या मैं अपने तनख्वाह से 100 रुपया दे सकता हूँ? 100 rupees, so it's just that small people, if you spread the word and you collect it, it's quite heartwarming.
I think we can go on, but we are running short of time. We just have about 5 minutes or 7 minutes. So please raise your hands. And do we have pigeonhole questions? Or?
Yeah, do we have questions on Pigeonhole?
Sorry, my trust in technology is a bit limited. But I think they have questions on Pigeonhole. So. No, I know that. I think
It's
the
not appearing.
questions with the highest number of votes. Yeah, but 21 votes, yes,
you
but they have to. Let me just read it.
Yeah, I can read it. Is
It
there
says,
anything
is there
more?
is there anything more than a lip service that the Indian industry is doing as CSR? If yes, what do you think is motivating them? Could you please give us examples? We've been doing lip service for the past 35 minutes, I know, talking, but, but beyond that.
I mean, if you think this is lip service, I think we haven't done justice to the session.
Does anybody else want to say it? No, I think it's a valid question. Skepticism is valid, but I think the best thing is to see what people are doing. And I would say that the three people we have here, all of us, the most skeptical human beings are we journalists, right? Somebody tells me your name is my name is this, I'll say kyo keh raha hai, right? What's the point? So I would say that these three have stellar track records in that area.
But I think having said that, I think there are, there is a lot of skepticism about what every organization does. But I think the more corporates realize that companies who are really doing good are actually being sort of the preferred employers, and I think that makes a big difference, because I think employees do want to belong to organizations that care. And I think you are going to see more and more companies not just paying lip service, but actually doing good for society. At least that's what I believe.
Well, I think she's very right, because whenever I'm asked to speak on leadership, I say that everything else you can learn, or you can unlearn, or you can be taught, but you can't be a big leader if you are not born with one ability, and that is to have a big heart. So I think companies with big hearts have leadership with big heart, and they grow, and employees like to work there. So that's it. Does that help you pinch doctors from other hospitals? Which may not be doing so much.
Now that's a
good work.
political question. No, it is a preferred location because 30 years of track record, great place to work. We give them the freedom, but we're very tough on quality. We encourage education and research, so doctors do want to work here.
And the Tatas have an old track record in this area anyway.
Yeah, I guess it's in their DNA. So it also, there are a lot of people who used to ask me when I used to first start collecting. We started as one. Now we're a team of 5 collecting funds. कि टाटा तो देने वाले हैं, लेने वाले क्यों हैं? Because it's the first time. But then it made ample sense. The answer is in the question, because the trust gives so much money you know, to all kinds of north, south, east, west, regardless. Everybody who comes and knocks on their doors goes away with something.
Yeah.
Can you read the next question?
Yeah, there's just one more question. It says to all the women on stage, balancing work and home life is always a challenge for us. What do you leading ladies, when do you leading ladies find the moment of true happiness?
You should have asked me that.
I think we heard one of the previous speakers say that, look, forget about this home life balance. You know, if you want a job, well, no, I'm just jokes apart. I really believe that this balance that people are talking about is your priorities. What are your priorities in life? And that is what balances you. At least that's the dictum I hold for myself.
You know, from the time we were kids, there was no home and hospital or office, because as children we were told to go and work for my dad. We were cheap labor. On every Sunday we go to work because he says, oh, but sickness has no holiday. Why are you girls sitting at home? So I think it just became part of our DNA. But having said that, I had a very old-fashioned Andhra mother-in-law. And I think she wanted me out of the house, because at 8:30 she would say, but aren't you going to go and help your father? What are you doing here? So the work-life balance just became part of our lives. You know, we enjoyed going to work because we felt needed. We loved coming home because we felt needed. And I think the children and the husband, everybody grew up with us saying that, you know, this is the way. Sometimes they very happily say it keeps them out of trouble. You know, because I think the women have the tenacity to do a lot more. You know, in our DNA, we can actually multitask. And we learn from every sphere of our activity because we're absorbing constantly. So I don't think this work-life balance, oh, it's so hard to do this or that, really applies anymore. You know, you just have to be able
And does it apply any more to women than it would to men?
That's a difficult one. It's for the men to answer. But in terms of balance, at the time that I had a part-time advertising career, I found it more difficult to balance, you know, work and. But when you work as a labor of love, it's just like sheer joy all the way, and everybody supports you. You know, there's nobody who'll say, "Why are you working so late to do good?" So I think I have that advantage.
I think on that very positive note, we have to break. I think we are out of time. So we are out of time. Thank you very much. You've been very patient. I know that all of you are there. All of you have been sitting here patiently only to listen to us. But there's one more slightly boring session after this. Please stay on for that also.